I think it's safe to say that most churches do missions work, but the question is, how? In the Bible, it tells us several times, tell them about me to the ends of the earth, or make disciples of all nations. Now, do you think that means difficult places as well, or challenging places, or dangerous places? Of course it does. So we're going to walk through what it means to serve in difficult places. We have Pastor Michael Seaman from Trinity Life Church in Toronto, along with Pastor Bob Roberts, talking through serving and doing missions in difficult places. What it means, the trials they went through, how we can serve people so they can see the light of Jesus. So we're going to talk through that today. And actually, that's one of the pillars of a GlocalNet church, is serving in a difficult place so we can go to the ends of the earth. Thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't been a part of this virtual roundtable series before, this is a resource that GlocalNet provides, and you can see our entire library at glocal.net, from mental illness and pastors and that discussion, to racism, America and the church, to even serving during this period in time of quarantine and self-distancing and things like that. So if you want to go back and watch those, I encourage you to do that. Another thing I want you to do before we get started, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, here's what I want you to do. I want you to comment below right now where your church is located and where you serve and do missions work. We want to see how widespread our audience is and where they're serving internationally or wherever it might be. So thank you so much for doing that. Do that right now as we transition to Pastor Michael Seaman and Pastor Bob Roberts.
Hello, I'm Bob Roberts, founder of GlocalNet, and I'm here hosting another virtual roundtable. We are pumped. I mean, today we have Dr. Michael Seaman from Toronto, Canada. He's going to be here and he's going to talk about what it's like to start a church that engages a hard place in the world. You want to talk about a hard place? He's in the West Bank, Palestine. He's going to talk about why he picked the place. What's it like to work there? I don't think there is a single area in the church today that needs to be redefined more than the whole thing about engaging nations. What does that look like? It's as if over the years it's become religious industry. And we start churches and we do our stuff and we have services and resources and processes. But what did the early church do to engage nations? It's very different from today. And why did the gospel spread like it did? Was it because church planting classes and it was going all over the world? Don't think so. And so we've stumbled onto a few things, and Mike is key to some of that. So we're excited you've joined us for this virtual roundtable. And so Dr. Seaman, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here, Bob.
Tell us about your church, your ministry, and how it got started a little bit.
Yeah. So we're almost 7 years old. Started back in 2013, and moved to Toronto, not knowing anybody. So we planted the church purely in KDSC, in our DNA, Kingdom Disciples Engaging Society, and out of that arose the church.
Okay, wait a minute. You said KDSC. What does that stand for?
That's Kingdom Disciple Society Church.
Okay,
right. Yeah, that's our DNA. So we thought when we moved here, let's just be Kingdom Disciples. Let's network with organizations, city leaders. Let's just live on mission, engage society through domains, through just networking, domains, relationships, and out of that arose the church. So we didn't start in a worship service or even a small group. We started by living a mission.
Wow. I bet people thought you were crazy.
Yeah. Most people thought we were crazy, thought we were a little foolish. But it's the kingdom. It's a Sermon on the Mount. It's us just loving our neighbors and our enemies and being people of integrity and just hearing and obeying what God had asked us to do. And his work was already going when we came here. We didn't start anything. We just joined his work. And through that, our church grew through people just wanting to live on mission. And our church is very multicultural. We're in downtown Toronto, so very multicultural, very young, a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Z in our church. I think maybe we have 5 people over 40. So most people in our
Do you
church,
have anyone 60 like me?
we don't have anyone like you.
Oh,
I wish
man.
we did. I wish we did. We need some life experience and wisdom.
Yeah.
But people are just attracted to living on mission, and that has really just caused us to work with our city and have
Now,
teams.
wait a minute. There are 3 things we ask every GlobalNet church to do. 3 things. What are those 3 things, Michael?
So be a multiplying church.
Yeah.
So be involved in church planting. Work in your city with the poor in your city, and then work in a hard place around the world.
Oh, I love that man. He got it down right. Okay, so I know you work in your city. You do tons of stuff in your city. I know you help start churches. I've actually been there and spoke and helped you with that. But picking a hard place in the world to work. Why the West Bank? Why Palestine? Why not go somewhere like Hawaii or Tahiti? I mean, people are going to hell at all kind of beautiful places. What do you want to go into a war zone? The biggest conflict in the world. Why the West Bank? I mean, at least go to Israel. But the West Bank, what's that about?
Yeah. Well, we're just doing around the world what we're doing in our city. And in our city, we don't just work in the poorest area in our city. Our church is there. We meet there. We engage there. We have relationships there. And so when we went to go around the world, we thought, well, we want to be in a place where people are oppressed and just share the love and the light of Jesus. And we didn't have a particular place in mind. I remember in the early days we were praying for God to give us a place and just wanted to make sure we had the right spot. But really all it came down to was where the open doors were. And my
That's
first
simple.
trip.
So you didn't have some light from heaven say, go there.
No, it was that simple. There's an open door and let's just walk through it and see what happens.
You know, Mike, you just said something I think is very profound, because the greatest things that I've been a part of, I didn't think about, I didn't come up with them. A door open and I had a choice, go through or not. Did God open this door or somebody else? So you go to the West Bank. What's it like? Tell me about your first trip. What did you experience?
Yeah, well, my first trip was with you, Bob. So
what did we do? I don't even remember that trip.
Yeah,
maybe I shouldn't ask.
So it was actually my first time in the Middle East. I'd been in North Africa. It was my first time in that region of the world, and we'd started out in Abu Dhabi, and then we'd gone to Jordan and crossed the border from Jordan in. And that was a wake-up call for me, that this is not like anywhere else I'd seen or been to in the world.
Nikki was with us on that trip.
That's right.
And if I remember right, at the border crossing, we had to wait almost 2 hours for my wife to get across.
Right.
They wouldn't let her in.
No, it got a bit hairy for a few minutes. Yeah, so that's the trip. So my first time going in, and I remember driving in and seeing the Dome on the Rock. We just saw it from like the cliffside over the city as we were driving into Bethlehem, and it had been something I'd seen on the news all my life. Had been a place I'd wanted to go all my life, but seeing it, just did something in my heart. And so that first trip, it was just meeting some people. I was really just tagging along. I was really just with you and just allowing the experience to open my eyes to whatever the Lord wanted. And that was the open door. And that was actually the same. That was a trip where President Trump made the Jerusalem announcement that they're going to.
You were on that trip.
So
yeah, I remember.
So yeah, my first trip in the West Bank, things went a little. Things got a little wild.
Smoke bombs and everything else.
Yeah, there's tear gas and the skunk water and
Did it frighten you?
And all that.
Did it frighten you?
You know, it didn't frighten me. No, actually, my wife and I, Missy, we have kind of a top 10 list of dangerous places we've been to in the world where we've experienced near death near death things. So this actually isn't even in that top 10. So it didn't frighten me, but it opened my eyes to a world that I didn't hear much about. I didn't know much about. And I remember sitting there, we were having dinner, if you remember, Bob, we were having dinner with some Palestinian leaders that night when the announcement was made at 8 p.m. and it was made live. And when that announcement was made, and everyone pretty much knew that it was going to be made, but there's still this string of hope that everyone was holding on to that was just cut. And it felt like all the air went out of the room. And that's what really grabbed me. I just thought, wow, like that was maybe like the moment that was the open door for me that said, we're definitely coming back. And our church is going to engage here.
So there were Palestinian Christians that you were with.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever met any Palestinian Christians?
I hadn't, and I hesitate to say this, but my mentality back then was, do Palestinian Christians even exist? I hadn't met one. I hadn't heard any talk about Palestinian Christians. Most of what I knew was from media, just like most people who haven't been there. It's from media and other things. And so my whole idea of the West Bank of Palestine was it was just all Muslim, that there were no Christians there, and I hadn't thought even below that surface level until we were there. And Toronto here has a large population of Palestinians, and they're mostly Muslim, and so nothing up until that point had served to change my worldview on that.
It is primarily Muslim in the West Bank, even Bethlehem, even though that's, quote, a Christian city, it's primarily Muslim. But when you met the Christians, I mean, you have Orthodox, but you've also got the evangelicals that are there. What I remember that night was many of the evangelical leaders in America tweeting congratulations, celebrating,
Right.
and yet nothing was said to the Palestinian Christians that were there. They felt rejected. They felt alone. Mm-hmm. What went through your mind? I mean, we were all sitting there. I remember it. We were there. We're watching it on the news. We're in a restaurant. What went through your mind when you saw literally Christians celebrating for the Jews while ignoring American Christians celebrating with the Jews, evangelicals, while ignoring the evangelicals in the West Bank and the hardship that they had just put upon them?
Right.
What went through your mind? How did you process that? I mean, you were at a pretty profound event when I look back on that. I forgot you were there with that.
Right. I'd felt empathy like I hadn't before. So immediately I felt a connection because we're one in spirit. We're all Christians in this restaurant, and I felt a piece of the neglect and the isolation, seeing what was on social media. Only a piece of it, because I didn't know hardly anything at that point. I still am learning so much. But my first reaction from that empathy was anger. It was frustration. It was, why hasn't anyone told me about this before? Why haven't I taken the liberty to find out about this and what was really going on? And whereas that quickly turned, because I was frustrated and angry. When I looked around the room, they weren't frustrated and angry. It felt like they'd probably been slapped in the face or they had a punch in the stomach, but their emotion, the primary emotion, wasn't frustration and anger. It was still hope, and that resonated with me so much, to say that yes, Jesus was born here, and there's still hope for this place. There's still hope in this place, and there's something that me as a follower of Jesus, there's something I can do to rally around the Christians who are here to multiply that hope.
Let me ask you this: when we start a church, one of the requirements is they have to pick a hard place in the world of work. So you pick the West Bank, and we encourage our churches to stay there long term. Why is that important, Michael? Why not just take a trip every year to a different place? Why does that matter?
Yeah, domain engagement is key for this. It's the
Let's
grid.
back up. What's domain engagement?
Yeah, domain engagement. So domains are it's the grid of society. It's how society operates. It's different domains of education and medical and health and governance. Those are examples of domains that we live and we exist in and that we operate in. And
I'm not talking about seven mountains and dominion theology, right?
no, none of that. We're not talking about taking over anything like that. We're talking about really just recognizing what our jobs, our vocations, our skills, and our passions are, and using those for the kingdom. So when I think domains for myself, previously being a theology teacher and teaching theology, I think in the education domain, but I also think in the entrepreneurial business side of things and in that domain, because that's who I am as a church planter. And that's key when we're working in a place around the world, because we're not going in on our religious credentials. We're going in to work and be a part of reconciling all things through Christ Jesus, where we want to do that through domains, because that encompasses our skills and our passions and our talents, and it empowers our people to use their vocation, our job.
So that's how you work there, which is good. But why do you stay there? Why not go to different places? What's the point of staying one spot long term?
The point is we get to go deep and we get to see relationships form. The point of us doing this isn't to go in and take over. It isn't to go in and convert people. It's to go in and love people and serve them. And that's best done long term over the course of a lifetime, hopefully, over the course of a lifetime of building relationships and seeing kingdom renewal and transformation. And we're not trying to go in and fix things overnight. We're not going to be anyone's savior. We're going in to serve, and going in one place long term helps us do that, rather than this kind of old school mentality, this kind of shotgun style of missions where we go here and here. We get to see long-term renewal and change and transformation happen.
One of the things I've learned from working in Vietnam and a lot of countries around the world, we think we bring value to a country because we're Christians and we want to start churches. The truth of the matter is, when we work in domains, we bring real value to that country, because whether it's education or economics, you're serving them. And then what happens is you're invited to do stuff. It's like you're given permission to expand. So a lot of times, well-meaning Christians go to a country, working with a few people, hoping to meet some people who don't know Jesus and share the gospel. From day one, the way we work in a country, you're relating to non-Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is that like? I mean, do you get to talk about Jesus? Do you see people decide to follow him? What is that like?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's freeing, because it's kingdom living. It's the abundant life. It's us living out the Sermon on the Mount, the Kingdom Manifesto. It's us loving those who would be considered our enemies, and we get to do that freely, because we're not there to quote unquote convert or proselytize people. We're there to see reconciliation happen in society, and it also causes us to really just humble ourselves and serve those who are there. Like I said, we're not coming in to rescue anybody, to be the savior. So we're coming in to serve, and naturally, as we do that, kingdom conversations happen, gospel conversations happen. We get to talk about Jesus. Those are the easy things, because people just ask us, why are you doing this? Why do you come here twice a year? Why do you spend a week and a half here every time you're here? Why do you come and just, why do you love us like this? And that breeds those gospel conversations very easily. And as we've been engaging there, Now, I didn't. Good news for me is that I didn't start from scratch. Like I said, God is already working there, but also my brother Kevin Brown was already working there for about 8 years, and so he was able to show me a lot of things that would have taken me years to discover on my own. So I learned through his successes and his failures and how their church is engaging there, and now we're, because of the lens we look through in domains, we've kind of spawned off to do our own engagement.
So what do you do? What do you do there? What are some of the domains that you're involved in?
Yeah, so because of my own lenses of the education domain and the economics domain, I just started looking at the educational institutions there. So we partner with a couple of the local institutions, but because of the entrepreneurial mindset, I really just started building relationships with local business owners. And so most of my friends in the West Bank, they run local businesses. They're entrepreneurs. And so those discussions led to other discussions that led us to working with the Chamber of Commerce in Bethlehem and creating an entrepreneurial program to help stimulate the economy of the West Bank.
Oh.
And so after a couple of years, we have a small church in downtown Toronto now working in the West Bank in a very important part of the world. And we actually have a hand in stimulating the economy of the West Bank. It's mind-blowing to me how simple willingness and obedience and just saying, God, where are you working, in the lens of domain engagement has led to that.
You deal with Christians there, some, Muslims much more. What is that like for you, talking about Jesus to Muslims, building friendships, relationships with Muslims?
Yeah, that was a learning curve for me in the West Bank, because I wasn't sure how we should talk about things or when that timing was important. But what I realized quickly was they assumed I was a Christian because I was from the West. So
did you tell them you were evangelical?
I did not use that terminology.
Did they figure that out?
What's that?
Did they figure that out?
I think so, through conversations. At least that's for some people that's just the main group they probably associate us with, because I talk about Jesus. So I have a friend there, and we can talk about anything, because he's Muslim, but he can just talk about anything. We can talk about philosophy and the great thinkers, and we can talk about the Quran and the Gospels, and there's no tension, there isn't, because we built a relationship. He's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and we built a relationship off of that. And he knows I love him, and we love each other. And just this past Easter, he sent me all these blessings over Easter. So
he's a Muslim guy.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Cool? And one of the things that we teach is most people work first through the head, the heart, and then the hand. Mm-hmm. So they focus on, I want to tell you what I believe, and then if you accept it, I love you, I like you, and now I'll work with you. We've reversed that order. Mm-hmm. So that you start with the hand. And one of the lessons I've learned is you can talk to anybody about Jesus when you serve them, when you start with the hand. Once they get to know you, once they see that you care about them. I mean, a Vietnamese diplomat I've been with more than 10 minutes, that they don't start asking me about my views on Jesus and God. And right. Many times they'll ask me, how does a person become a Christian? They get baptized or what? So I mean, it's funny to me, Michael. Some people have the idea when you serve, you don't ever talk about Jesus. My gosh, that's all I talk about, because right. I get emails, texts. I was in Vietnam one time, and the Deputy Minister of Education said, oh, Bob Roberts is here with us. Some of us have been to his church. Bob, would you stand up and give us one of your sermons about Jesus? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
When you know people, it's not like he's showing up to do religious work.
Right.
But our faith is in our work. I mean, it's It's such a different way. Do they ask you about Jesus a whole lot?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Bob, because when if we have the paradigm of head, heart, hands, we're always trying to look for a spot to insert our beliefs, right? But if we start with hand and go the heart then the head, it's just natural. And so those are questions we get all the time. And like you said, it happens almost immediately. Just why? What causes you to do this? And there we go. There's an entry point to share our faith and just talk about Jesus and share his light and his love.
How have they changed you? You know, we Christians go around the world. We want to change other people. I don't know what your experience has been, but they've changed me. It's like they've converted me in a way. And how I think, what I see. How have you changed? How have they changed you?
So a couple of things. One, I love more deeply now than I ever have. And I remember, so Bob, Misty and I, we celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary this past week. You celebrated 40.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 40 this year, so you've been married.
Shut up.
So we celebrated our 16th. I remember someone on my wedding day telling me, on my wedding day, right before I was going to get married, you don't know what love is. And I thought, get out of here. You have no idea what you're talking about. Now 16 years in, actually 5 years in, I realized they were exactly right. And that love just became deeper and deeper. And the more and more I'm in the West Bank, the deeper and deeper I understand God's love, the deeper and deeper I love. And yeah, you say this, you said this a few times to me as well. When your theology was this wide, your love for others was like this. But when your core theology became tight, your love for others became really wide. And I've learned even more so how contextual theology is and how contextualized my own theology is. And so that's been a part of my journey of learning how to love, and also just being a son of God who hears and obeys. And my time in the West Bank, my relationships with Muslims in particular, has taught me so much about that. It's taught me how to hear God in the moment and how to trust him and depend on him. It's caused me to love others who are completely different. But I don't know, there's this beauty that God has born in my heart through all of this.
Let me ask you this. I know that I used to have this view of a worldview, and there was a such thing as a Christian worldview. Mm-hmm. I've actually come to push back on that. Mm-hmm. I think our views are polycentric. I think there are many things that make our views. So I had a Christian worldview, and then I had a view within that about how Jesus had to come back. And I was raised with the Jews have got to go back, and we love Israel, we support Israel, which I still do. Mm. But I learned that God also loves those Palestinians. Yeah. And I learned that I've got brothers in Christ. And I realized to a large degree how much of my geopolitical views were shaped, not by the Bible as much as my religious tribe and culture, in speculative theology.
Right.
And I started having to deconstruct some of my theology because of bad hermeneutics. I believe goofy stuff. Still believe Jesus is coming back, still support Israel, but I still support the Palestinian. And that I've come to love the Palestinians just as much. And that's hard for some people. Was that hard for anyone in your church, or was it a piece of cake?
I was hoping it would be a piece of cake, but that cake felt like it had been rotting for a while. It was hard. It was difficult for me too. That first trip we had, I realized how multifaceted the world is. I was like you, Bob. I thought this idea of worldview, and we could see everything through that lens, and I realized that's not true. That's just there's multiple things that are informing, and in this particular situation, religious situation, the cultural situation, the geopolitical situation. So many factors are in this area of the world that makes it so completely multifaceted. And when I came back to our church and I said, hey, this is where we're going to engage, because we're in Toronto, because we're in downtown Toronto, because we have a young church who just loves to live on mission, and most people I mean, we're in a pretty liberal environment here in Canada as well. I just thought everyone's going to be for this. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, this is great. We have a large Palestinian population here. We're going to be great. But immediately when I said the West Bank, everyone thought we had chosen a side. Everyone thought we had chosen against Israel. We had chosen against those who are Jewish, and we had chosen Palestinians. And that was difficult. I didn't expect that. Definitely here in Toronto. And so that was difficult for us in our journey.
But think about that. Did you reject the Jews?
No.
Did you reject the statehood of Israel?
No.
So think about, what is in our theology that says you're either for this one or for that one? What's wrong with us?
Right.
We can't love them all.
Right.
I mean, is there anywhere Jesus said, don't love these people, that you can find?
No.
Okay, hey, let's have some fun. You're a PhD. You're extremely smart. All right. So here's what I want to know, Michael. The land that God promised Israel, how much of that land, or did they possess all the land that God promised them?
No.
They didn't.
They did not.
Never in the history of Israel.
No.
You're right. And the reason I know that is not because I'm a scholar like you, but Jonathan Sacks, the chief rabbi, who's retired of London, told me that. And I listened to him. A bunch of evangelical Christians in a meeting I was at asked him, what should be done about the Palestinians? Should they leave, or what do we do? And his answer blew me away. He said, first of all, we never had all of the land. If we were going to have all the land, that would mean parts of Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Jordan, maybe Saudi Arabia, all of these areas. He said, the question for Israel was not how much of the land she had, but what did she do with the land that she did have?
Yeah. So
if Christians are going to be consistent, then they're going to have to also say, then we're going to take land away from those surrounding countries as well. And so it's just, I don't know. I think the West Bank opened me up. And frankly, for me, it was getting to know Muslims, and I was curious their views, why they viewed that way. And it forced me to go back to my scripture. Hey, tell me this. Tell me the greatest thing, the best story you've got that's happened as a result of working there so far. If I come back and ask you this question 5 years from now, you'll go, oh, Bob, I don't know. There's so many. You've been there 2 or 3 years. What's been the best thing so far, you would say?
Yeah, the best. So there's different levels to this. So personally, it's grown me so much. We've already talked about that. It's changed our church, which we basically, what we do here in our city, we do there, and it has caused our church to live on mission so much more, because both are informing the other. It's this two-way street where we're learning from them. We're learning here, we're bringing it there. We're learning from there and bringing it here. And
it's
that,
local.
It's local. That's right. That's right. Global net. Let's put a plug in. Yeah. So it's that's been huge. But the most personal story I have is the friend of mine I was talking to about, fellow entrepreneur, different faith, and yet we're friends. I see him every time I go there. I spend time with him. He's invited me into his home. It's just love. It's a relationship on pure love, not on, hey, I'm here to convert you, or he's here to convert me. It's just, we're going to love each other and be in a relationship with each other. And that's changed everything for me.
Good.
And
it's fun to love people, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It is.
And is it okay to love non-Christians?
It is, yes. How else are they going to know Jesus?
So it sounds like you're in it for the long term, not just in the country, but for the relationships and the people that you know.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was supposed to be in Bethlehem 2 months ago when this whole outbreak happened, or I guess a month and a half ago now, and I miss it. It's become a second home. And I can't believe it's going to be, if I go in November, it'll be a year since I've been there, and that's way too long for me.
Yeah. What would you say to churches who want to build this kind of global engagement? What would you say? Here are 2 or 3 things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'd say first thing is there's open doors everywhere. Just open our eyes, ask God, and open our eyes to those open doors. Second, I'd say for a church who wants to start in this, if you don't know domain engagement, get with us on domain engagement. That's how we work all over the world, is through domain engagement. And if you want to learn more about that, contact us at GlocalNet. And then the third thing I'd say is just do it. There's so many people waiting. There's so many people saying, well, we got to wait till we have these finances, or this opportunity, or this many people, or no, I'd say start ASAP, as soon as possible, even if it's just the leader of the church doing it. That's how we did it. It was just me for our first 2 trips, and so just do it.
So you're up in Canada, somebody's in Toronto or close by. Can they, if they're in the chat box, if they send their info, would you be willing to reach out to them and get
Definitely.
to know them and tell them about GlocalNet? And so you can help them, you can help them start churches?
Absolutely.
You could help somebody start a church?
Absolutely. We would
teach
love
them
to.
how to engage their city?
Definitely.
You could teach them how to work around the world?
Of course, yes.
And if you go to glocal.net, that's what we're there for.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Seaman, this has been great. I'm proud, given your Thai ethnicity. I'm glad you went somewhere totally opposite. You picked not home missions, if you will, but you went outside your tribe, be it America, Thai, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think that's critical. I think when we work around the world, there's nothing that defines the kingdom like serving in the name of Jesus in domains around the world. It changed me.
Right.
I tell people all the time, the gospel changed me, but the second thing that changed me was the world. You can know the gospel, but if you don't know the world and the gospel that you're taking it to and what that looks like, you're in trouble. Thanks for being with us today, Michael. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to encourage you, if you've got any questions for GlocalNet, feel free to email us, text us, glocal.net. We're there. We'd love to network with you and be a part of the family. God bless.